Hey guys, Clay here. I'm going to show you how to install these tube fenders on your Jeep JK. So let's get started. So we're going to start with this 10mm bolt here, and then we're going to work our way to the inner fender liner bolts, and we're just going to start taking them off. And then we've got one that's hidden back here, and there's another one down here. We're going to keep all of this hardware. So this is that one that's hidden. We've got one more in the front. Next thing we need to do is remove these plastic trees that are along the inner fender liner. So I've just got a body clip removal tool. Wedge that in there. Get another one right here. Get another one way up here. Now before we rip the fender off of the clips on the body, just make sure you go along this inner fender well, and it should be loose all the way around. Make sure you didn't forget any bolts or forget any clips anywhere. And it should feel like it's only attached by this plastic fender out here. Now you can't really see this, but there's a bulb in this marker. It's just going to twist clockwise, and then we'll just pull it out. Looks like that. Go ahead, just remove that so we don't damage anything, and we go ahead and pull our fender off. So before we pull the fender off, we've got one more clip on the marker light wire. You just have to reach up underneath there and pull it out. It's a little plastic tree, just like all the other clips we removed. Looks like that. So now it's time to remove the fender from the front of the Jeep. There's no real easy way to do this. You kind of just got to pull up on the fender and out. There's these little T-clips that attach the plastic piece of the metal fender all the way around the fender. And like I said, you just got to pull up and out on them. It's going to feel like you're breaking some of them. If you do, it's okay. If you actually want to put your plastic fenders back on, you can get those plastic clips. They're readily available. So we're just going to pull up and out and start removing it all the way around. So now we need to remove this U-nut and these plastic clips. You can see some of them broke here, but again, we're just going to use our tool. Pull those out. I know it sounds like you're breaking stuff, and sometimes you are, but it's okay. So if you're going to retain your factory inner fender liner, we're going to need to drill out these plastic clips. It just makes it easier to remove. If you're not, you can go ahead and skip this process. So we've got a 5/32 drill bit. We're just going to find the center of these plastic clips and just drill them out. Then we'll take our body clip removal tool and just pry the inner fender away from the outer fender. So we've got our inner fender liner back at the Jeep, and we're just going to hold it back in place and make sure we find the factory mounting hardware to line it up with. And you're just kind of using this factory metal fender as a guideline to see where you're going to trim this. So you can see it's just going to follow right along the body line, but this is just to give you guys an illustration so you can see what you're trimming. So we're going to take our Sharpie and just mark right along here. Now we'll mark the rear side of the inner fender. So now you can see the body line here. We're just going to mark it with our Sharpie. This stuff is not exact, guys. This is just if you want to retain your inner fender liner. And then we'll cut that with the cutoff wheel. So now we're on the front side of the inner fender, and you can see the line I made. Do not touch that area after you cut it. Just wait, let it cool down, then we can clean all those little pieces off. So now this is a little bit longer of a cut, so I'm going to start up here towards the top, and I'm actually going to leave this little bit of plastic here to give it some more strength. If I want to trim more later, I can always trim more. I don't want to trim too much the first time. Now we just used a regular cutoff wheel for cutting steel, but this is just plastic. You can use whatever you want, reciprocating saw, anything you're comfortable with. If you had a big enough pair of shears, you could probably cut it. So now that we've got it trimmed, we're going to just take some of this Scotch-Brite and clean up this plastic on the edges here. Same thing, you don't need this. You can use sandpaper, a file, whatever you got laying around the shop. So now that we got the edge all cleaned up, we can go ahead and apply the 3M rubber seal to our metal fender. So this is the passenger side steel fender, and we need to put the rubber seal that's included with the kit all along this inside edge, and it's just attached with 3M backing tape. So before we do that, we're going to clean it with some alcohol. If you guys have got any degreaser or anything will work. The cleaner you get this, the better the 3M adhesive is going to stick. But it should be pretty clean when you receive it. So we'll let that dry for a minute, and then we're going to apply this seal. So now we've got the rubber seal, and this top piece that doesn't have any 3M backing on it is what's going to sit on top of the fender, and then the 3M tape side is going to be on the inside of this flange. So I'm at the front of this fender, and we're just going to get this started, and we'll start here and work our way to the back of the fender. Double check and make sure you have enough. We have more than enough, so we're going to just trim the excess off the back to ensure that we have enough on the front. I'm just going to push that down, get it in place, and then we'll just work our way around the fender. And all I'm doing is pushing this seal up against the fender and then pulling the backing out as we move. And this seal is just to prevent crud from getting down in between the fender and the paint on your Jeep. And just make sure you go back over and press the 3M down all the way around. And you can see we're at the rear side of the front fender. We're just going to trim this extra seal. So I'm just going to trim it with some scissors now, but I'll probably come back with a razor knife and clean it up a little more. So now this is the side marker harness. You can see the plug right here. I'm just going to push in on that clip and remove it. We're not going to retain these. If you do need to retain these, you can put the bulb back in and zip tie it up in here. You can actually drill a hole through the flange on the fender all the way through and put your marker back in if you need it for your state laws. There's about 10 different ways you can do that. We're not going to retain this, and that's where that plug is, to just unplug it. So this is a simple install, guys. We've just got our bolts and our serrated flange nut, and you can see these holes that are in the factory steel fender. This is a brace that came with the factory plastic fender, and I'm just going to set this tube fender up on that brace and line up this front hole. Rest it on that brace. We'll get our hardware going. I'm not going to tighten this down right now. I'm just going to get it started, and then we'll work our way around. And we'll get our hardware fastened all the way around in case we need to move it a little bit, and then we can go back and tighten it. So now we've got our hardware installed. We're just going to tighten everything up. The flange nuts are 12 millimeter and the bolts are 14. So I'm just going to use an open-ended wrench and make sure I got this facing the right way. Some of these are a little difficult to get to, so you just have to fish it back there, and then a ratcheting wrench works the best for some of these. So we're going to take our U-clip that we took off of the fender, and we're going to put it on our inner liner and use the factory hardware to reattach it. Now we're only really using 2 points to attach our factory inner fender liner back. You're going to have to get creative with the back of the fender liner on how you want to attach it, because it really attached to the old outer plastic fender. So now the rear portion of this inner fender liner, there's really no factory place to attach it, but there is a pinch weld bolt and a hole down here on the bottom that you could take out. You can drill a hole through here, zip tie that back in there, and it would be fine. This is really a temporary fix though. Most people upgrade to the aftermarket aluminum inner fender wells whenever they're doing a tube fender. Which is what we're going to be doing with this build, but I just wanted to show you guys. You're going to have to get a little creative when it comes to attaching this rear portion of the splash shield back to the body of the Jeep. Well, there you go, guys. Very straightforward install. Now, don't forget to repeat that process on the other side. If you have any questions at all, make sure to give us a call or visit us online. Thanks.